All right, well, welcome to Billy's Books. We're doing here, this book is called The Wichita Lineman by Dylan Jones. Dylan Jones is a Brit, and I think he's a very avid music fan. I think he grew up he was like a kid in the 60s, a young kid in the 60s. 1968 is when Wichita Lineman was released by Glenn Campbell in the midst of great, as you may know, 1968 was a messed up year. There was a lot of very strident music at that time, and this was a mild-mannered little song that came and no one, it hit, it was a minor hit, but nobody cared, and it grew over time. Kind of like a song Imagine, which never went #1, by the way. It was sort of just a hit, oh, Glenn Campbell, oh, John Lennon, whatever. But then over time, people were like, it grew on them, and they grew to love it. So Dylan Jones he grew up near Air Force bases, and that's how he got exposed to a lot of American music. His mom loved Dean Martin, and so he was surrounded by Dean Martin tunes and things like that. So Glenn Campbell was, a country song, a little bit of variation, but not that big for him. Jimmy Webb is the guy that wrote the song. Like he and Glenn Campbell were a team. Jimmy Webb wrote a lot of tunes. He claims that this song was nothing special to him. He also sent a demo to Glenn Campbell, and Glenn Campbell's recorded it pretty much as it was, even though Jimmy Webb considered it to be an unfinished song. This author calls it the perfect imperfect song. I guess it has to do with the unfinishedness of it. One of the things he says about the lyrics of this song, when I first heard this song, the funny story about this song is, Wichita Lineman, is apparently everyone's heard it but me. I auditioned, I live in Missouri now, and I auditioned for a band a couple years ago. I just wanted to show up as a bass player, and I learned that song, and I showed up to rehearsal going, this is a beautiful song, I'd never heard it before. They were like, what? You never heard this song before? Oh my God! So I guess everyone knows it but me. But now that I've heard it, I instantly fell in love with the song. It's quite beautiful, and I am quite moved, hence the focus on it. Anyway, one thing that Jimmy Webb said about this song, hey, there goes a lineman right now. How about that, huh? One thing he said about it is, you can see someone, and you may think you know what's going on inside him, but you don't. You can't not assume a man is not a poet. Glenn Campbell, you may or may not know, is part of the Wrecking Crew, which is a famous group of session musicians from LA. And they played on the world-famous Pet Sounds, and also earlier before that, in the 64, 65, when the Beach Boys were touring, Brian Wilson freaked. He absolutely fucking freaked. And said, I can't tour anymore. And so they put Glenn Campbell in to replace him on bass and very high falsettos. And Brian Wilson says that Brian Wilson said that Glenn Campbell is a better singer than any of the Beach Boys, and he can sing higher than Brian's falsetto. He sings pretty, he looks pretty, he plays guitar pretty, so much so that one of the reasons he didn't like touring and he preferred studio work was when he would go on tour, he didn't like it because, A, he didn't like the repetition, he didn't like the stress, and he didn't like traveling, I guess. He also got heckled, I guess, for being a pretty boy. Which I would not have expected. I know that they say specifically he got heckled at a Doors concert. I guess maybe he was subbing for bass in a Doors concert. I don't know. I actually requested that the St. Louis Public Library purchase this just because I wanted to read it. So it's possible no one else in the world will read this book. If you're a musician out there or something like that, get it from the library to support the fact that they bought it for me. I think that's super, and it's really great that they bought it for me. I love my public library. Support your public library. And if you can't do, review. I need you more than want you, and I want you for all time. And the Wichita Lineman